Be'ez Hashem Yisborach, we begin Perek Revi, the fourth chapter in the Rambam, Hilchos Nedarim, the laws of vows, and the Seif HaFlaw. When this Perek, the Rambam discusses the laws known as Hataras Nedarim regarding permitting the vows. As the Rambam opens up Halacha Aleph regarding there are certain vows that actually are initially permitted. Nidri Anasan, vows of coercion, which the person had to take a vow because he was forced to, as Rambam is going to shortly explain. Or Nidri Shkagis, or a vow that was taken in error. For example, he said, let my wife be forbidden to have any benefit from me because she stole my purse or because she hit my son. Turns out she never did any one of those actions. So it was an error. V'nidri havai, or vows of exaggeration. Haril mutarim, these are all permitted and they don't have to even be requested from a sage to permit them. Like we explained the laws of Shuas in the third chapter. Now, so Ram goes to explain the opening one of Nidra Nasan. Harisha hidiruhu ha-nasan b'amrichsan. Let's say people of coercion or of the tax collectors, if they make him take a vow. They say to him, Nadir lanu v'ara shabasa as alecha, that meat's forbidden to you. If you have anything that has to have a tariff on it. And he swears, he vows and he says, yeah, the bread, the meat, the wine, it's all forbidden on me. He's actually permitted in all of that. And the Chiddush is, even though he's adding on things which were not even said that included what they want him to swear about, but even though he has things that are obligated in the tariff, since he's forced, it's not called pivali b'shavin, which we said, and we're going to say shortly in Halacha Beis, it's not a vow until your mouth is the same as what you have in your heart. So it's actually permitted in that all. Even though he added on more to take a vow than they even requested of him. So if let's say they request from him and say, to make sure that he takes a vow that his wife's not going to have benefit from him. He swears, he says, you know what, my wife, my children, my brothers, I'm telling you, what I'm saying is the truth. None of them will have any benefit from me. Again, kulam matam will permitted. Anything like this, because this is called nidri anasan. It's not considered a valid vow in the first place. Halacha beis now regarding all these vows where he's taking it because of einasan, because of duress, because of coercion. But he has to at least have a mind for the thing that is permitted. For example, he should think that although I'm saying meat's forbidden for me, but it's only for that day. You should show that moment. Or things like that. And he can rely on what's called words in his heart. Since again he's being coerced, so although generally we say Dvarim Shabbalib in Dvarim, but since he's forced, so he can rely on that in this situation, because he can't enunciate it, because that's exactly what they want him to swear, so that they know he's got to pay these undue taxes. It comes out that the moment that he did take the vow, like we said, his mouth is not the same as his heart. Like we explained in the halachas of Shuas, where he's not going to be chayiv until it's pivali b'yishavim. Same thing is regarding vows of motivation, where he's only making the vows to motivate his friend that he shouldn't be stubborn. Mutarim, again, those are also permitted. You don't even have to have shelas chacham. It's not a vow at all. Kitzah, how so? For example, if let's say he took a vow prohibiting his friend to have benefit from him, meaning he's inviting him to eat by him and the person's refusing. So the guy says, look, if you don't come to eat by me, then you can have forbidden to have benefit from me. Now, the guest who's being invited, he takes a vow that he's not going to eat by him. If he doesn't want to put the guy through so much effort and exertion. I know you're trying to do me a favor, but please, I don't want you to go through it. So he says, I'm taking a vow that I'm not going to come eat by you. So Bein Achel, whether he does eat by him, and then the guy who was the guest violated his vow, or Bein Lo Achel, whether he did not eat by him, in contrast to the intention of the one that took a neder on him, that he's going to be forbidden to have benefit from him if he doesn't eat by him. Either way, Shnei Baturim, both of them are going to be patur, because like we said, it's not a vow at all, because of the fact that it's like we said, that wasn't what he had in his mind, in his heart. And v'chein so to similar hamoicher of a seller. Shenother, he takes a vow. He takes a vow. I'm not selling this object less than a seller, which is 4 dinar. But like and the buyer says, I swear I'm not going to go ahead and buy this for more than a shekel, which is a half a seller, which is 2 dinar. And at the end they agree b'shleish dinar. They come on to a compromise 3 dinar. Allah name between they're both exempt. They both took a neder the other way. It doesn't make a difference anything similar to this. And the reason is for these two Nedarim, what we call Nidri, the reason, the two cases we gave, is none of them were conclusive in their heart, and he didn't take the vow, just to go ahead and motivate and encourage his friend, but he didn't have a conclusive in his he just wanted to get him going. He said, I swear, it's like, oh, this guy's not budging. So it comes out, it wasn't Pivaliboy Shavim, so therefore it's not a Neder. Halacha Dal. Now how do we know that even these four types of Nedarim, which, like we said, there's four types of Nedarim that are permitted, but the person is not allowed to go just take these vows with the intention of nullifying them. So although we said Nidri Nasin, we said there's Nidri Shkogas, Nidri Avai, Nidri Zruzin, these four types, that they're not forbidden as a vow. But that still someone should not take them in vain. Talmud says in the pasuk in Bamidbar, which means don't make your words profane. Don't just say things that are not going to be with validity. Halakha Ram continues regarding something that is a neder, but one could be matter and make it permitted. Mishneh, if someone took a vow, but v'nichma nidra, he regrets taking the vow, he could go and ask for the sage to see if there's a way to analyze and see that there's some element of regret, and then he could permit it and show that, this was never forbidden because of there was some lacking in conviction over here, but that just the person wasn't aware of at the time they took the neder. Now, but didn't have to Nadam, the laws of permitting a vow is kedin have to shvuz, like the laws of permitting oaths. She'ein mater l'chachamuvak, that it can only be permitted through a professional, an expert sage, or three laymen in a place where there is no sage. And the same terminology that they use to permit the oath, whatever they say, that's how they permit the vow. And so to all the other ideas that we mentioned regarding oaths, they all are equal regarding permitting vows, as we said regarding oaths. And you cannot permit and undo a vow until it takes effect. Like we said by oaths, where if let's say someone said now that it should take effect then, it cannot be matrid until it actually takes effect. It's just like you could request on regarding a vow of prohibition, which is the topic of these halachas nedarim, you could permit it that way. So too you could ask to undo a vow regarding being makdish something and permit that. And that's bein nidri kachah, whether it's a vow for the temple upkeep, for a monetary kedusha, because whether something that you sanctified for the altar to be brought as a carbon. But one cannot go ahead and request to undo with his regret regarding a timur, which is when the owner of a carbon says regarding a regular unconsecrated animal, says that this should take the place of that one, which actually now they both have a sanctity. The reason why you cannot undo it like you could for regular hektish is because timura in error is a timura. Because the pasuk says yia kaidish, which the Gemara says in timura includes whether you did it by mistake is the same as deliberately. So even if you're going to be shoyl, it's not going to be effective, because the whole point of being shoyl is to say that, it was a mistake, so therefore it's not effective. But Tamura takes effect even if it was a mistake. So therefore you cannot be shoyl on Tamura. Halacha ches. So just like a father and a husband could nullify the vows of prohibition that the daughter or the wife took, so too they can nullify the vows as they apply to hektish, which are similar to those of the nidri isser. Now, halacha test, the Rambam continues regarding this about hatras nedarim, which has a domino effect. Let's say someone took a vow, and his friend heard, and he says, "Vani and me too." And the third person heard, and he says, "And me." So that we said that each one has hatfas and is going to take effect on the previous one. Now, the first person was shoyl on his neder, which they said, and he was matter his neder. So hutra kulam. Now, all the other people, the subsequent people, they're in the dharma also permitted, because since they're dependent one on the other, once the first one falls, so they're all permitted too. Let's say nishla achron hutra. Let's say only the last person is shoyl on his neder, and he becomes permitted. Well, ha'achron hutra, the last one's going to be permitted. But kul nasrum, but all the rest are going to be forbidden because they weren't dependent on him. He was dependent on them. Let's say nishla hasheni, but let's say the second guy, the middle guy asks on his neder and the permits Hasheni b'shalachim b'term. So the second guy and the one after him who's dependent on him, they're permitted. But the first one's going to be forbidden. Halacha yud v'chein matfes dvarim harbe b'neder. So too, this was in people. So too in objects. Someone is matfes many things in a vow. Kagon shenot all pas. Let's takes a vow prohibiting the bread. V'hitves habasa. Now he grabs a hold of the meat to be like the bread. And then but then he goes and he shell on the neder that he originally made regarding the bread, and it's permitted for him. So tabasa. So the meat, which was only prohibited based on the neder of the bread, is now going to be permitted too. Now, initial alabasa, but let's say you make your shell on the neder of the meat and permit that. Well, it's not going to permit the bread because the bread wasn't dependent on the meat was dependent on the bread. Halacha Yud Aleph, similar type of idea regarding a vow in general, that some of it was permitted regarding then permitting the whole thing. If someone takes an oath or a vow, I'm not going to have benefit from any one of you. Now he's showing his neder, it was a group of people, let's say 20 people. And he goes to the Chacham and he says, this guy, I feel bad, it's not what I knew, I would not have known. They find a Pesach for him, for his oath or his vow regarding one of the people, and they permit it. Then hutru kulam, then actually it's permitted for benefit from them all, because originally when he took his neder was one unit of a neder. Comes out when you permit part of it, so the whole thing is undone. Sha neder shud machlol, because a vow that is permitted from its category, hutru kulay, the whole thing becomes permitted. Let's say he says she'eni nen l'zeh v'lezeh v'lezeh. It doesn't say any nen l'kulcham as one unit. He says I'm not going to have benefit from this person and this person and this person and so on. So hutru rishon, the first one becomes permitted. So hutru kum, so they're all permitted because since he said with a vav, a chibur, a connection, so they're all dependent one on the previous one like a domino effect. So you're permitting the first one, all going to be permitted. Hutru achar, unless you permit the last one, well achar mutar b'kol masum, then the last one can be permitted, but all the ones before him, which are not dependent on him, are going to be forbidden. Let's say it says she'in nen l'zeh. Let's say it doesn't use a vav. I make a vow that I'm not going to benefit from this one, from this one, from this one, from this one. Well, it's Pesach Pesach, and then you're going to have a separate Pesach to be matter the neder, and each one independently, because no one is dependent on the other one. And anything that's similar to that also would require a separate Hatoras Nedarim on each and every one. Halacha Yud Beis, Nadir ben Nazir, a similar idea where it's all one unit, and therefore you permit it's all permitted. Let's say Nadir ben Nazir, someone took a vow there's going to be Nazir. Overcoming this, took a vow there's going to be a carbon, and Ubishvua, and that regarding that of an oath. That he's not going to eat meat in that day. Or let's say he took a vow and he doesn't know which one of these he took a vow. It doesn't make a difference. Pesach echel chulam. It's enough with one opening for them all. And the reason for that is because ultimately they're all considered categorically like a neder. And a neder, a vow that partially permitted, that all becomes permitted. And even if he only finds an opening of charata for the vow which he said last, they're all going to be permitted because again, it's all one neder. Halacha Yud Gimel, says the Rambam, if someone takes a vow prohibiting himself from the people of that city. Now, and he goes and he requests to be permitted from the sage of that city. Now, although initially it's forbidden to ask from that sage because that sage is getting benefit from that Hataras Nedarim because he's also from the city members. But be that as an A, or he takes a vow from the Jewish people. Very initial and he asks the sage of the Jewish people, well, here he has no alternative because obviously it has to be a Chacham Yisrael and it's from all the Jewish people. But be that as an A, both of them Hari Nidr Mutter, ultimately the vow is going to be permitted even if it's a Chacham from that city. Now, Halacha Yadal, the Ram continues regarding a vow that's dependent on an action, meaning with a stipulation. If someone says, these fruits are forbidden on me today, if I go tomorrow to that place. So he's not allowed to eat those fruits today. Why? Because there is rabbinic concern, because tomorrow I might go to that place, and retroactively comes out that this was forbidden. So even though right now it's not forbidden, we don't let you eat it now. Let's say he violates it and does eat it today, and goes tomorrow. Well, then he's going to get lashes because he went and for the eating that he was able to yachal debar. Now, if he didn't end up going the next day, then it doesn't get lashes, although he violated the rabbinic law of eating yesterday, but ultimately he didn't go the next day, so therefore he doesn't get lashes for the isab of lo yachal. Let's say he says Harim Asrum Lamachar. Let's say it says the other way around. It says they're forbidden tomorrow. If I go today to that place. There's a mutar leilach hayim leisamakim. So in this case, he's allowed to go to that place today. And then he goes, those produce are going to be forbidden on him tomorrow. And anything that's similar to that, where let's say he says that it's going to be forbidden for me to sleep tomorrow if I sleep today. So he's allowed to sleep today, and then he's not going to be able to sleep tomorrow. What's the difference for the discrepancy? Because the person is careful regarding something that's prohibited not to do it, where therefore we're not concerned that maybe he's going to eat the fruits tomorrow because he doesn't want to violate his neder, which he made forbidden by eating today. But ve'ein zar b'tanai should go unless a dava hamuta. But he's not careful with a stipulation which is going to cause him to violate something that is permitted. Meaning, therefore, in the previous halacha, we're concerned that he's going to go tomorrow because it's just a t'nai. He didn't say that's going to be forbidden. Then he says, what I eat today is forbidden if I go tomorrow. So, therefore, it's going to come out retroactively that what he ate today was forbidden, and then we said we don't let you eat it because you're not going to be careful in the stipulation, which is going to cause to make what was permitted as retroactively forbidden. Halach design regarding the completing a person's vow, what's called hashlama, says Rambam, let's say someone took a vow to fast for 10 days, not necessarily consecutive. Whichever 10 days he wants. And he was fasting one of these 10 days, and he needed for a mitzvah purpose to eat in a sudas mitzvah like a bris milah or a si masechta, because of the honor of a great person who was pressing him to eat with him. So he could eat that day, and this is called tashlumin, and he could pay it back another day, which he'll fast another day in place of this day. And the reason is, he didn't set which days initially when he was taking the nether. So though he started doing this day for that day, but it's not definitive, and therefore he could pay it up a different day. Let's say Nader Shiyatzim Hayyim. Let's say he took a vow he's going to fast today, B'Shachar V'Achal, and forgot and he ate. So Mashrim Lotzim, he has to complete that day with fasting, and he cannot continue eating that day with relying that he's going to fast another day in place, because here he specified it should be this day. Let's say Nader Shiyatzim Yem Echad Shnaim. Let's say he took a vow that he's going to fast a 1 day or 2 days, and they didn't say which days it's going to be. When he started fasting, he forgot and he ate. So Avitan, so he lost this day of fasting. The Chayiv Lotzim Yemachid is going to have to fast another day in place of this one to fulfill his vow. But that day, it's going to be permitted for him to continue eating, again, because he has lost that day as the fast, and he'll have to make it up another day.